Welcome to Say More, the podcast where we expand the conversation around what it means to be human. I'm here with my co-host, Emily Lawyer, licensed professional counselor, and I'm Andy Spray, and I cry in the shower. It's my credentials. We're answering your real questions, and while we're at it, creating a community where we can grow together and learn how to connect more to self in order to connect more to others, and ultimately more to God. Hi.
Hello.
This is a very exciting day.
So exciting.
Because this is our first episode of season 2.
We're kicking it off.
Maybe you're like me and you don't notice that podcasts have seasons.
I have had some people come up to me and say they definitely were ones who do pay attention to that. So
everybody says they pay attention. It seems to only be me who doesn't. But hopefully you already know, but we are splitting the podcast into seasons. In season 1, we sort of talked about broader topics. We're going to get into some more nitty-gritty details. A lot of the questions we get are really specific, and it's hard to answer those kinds of specific questions unless you've laid some groundwork, which is what we were doing in season 1.
Exactly.
And it's been really fun for us, whether you've been with us from the beginning or maybe you've discovered it along the way, to kind of have these conversations with people in real life who have been joining us on the journey, kind of sitting up for a chair at the living room chat with us.
It's such a joy.
It's been really fun. One of the things I've been hearing about, I don't know what you've been hearing about,
okay,
but one of the things I've heard a few comments about is the anxiety episode.
Okay.
Back in season 1, we did an anxiety episode. And I referenced something I watched on TV as a child that has really stuck with me that no one else remembers, okay? Everyone remembers when Jesse got addicted to pills on Saved by the Bell, but nobody else remembers the Charlie Brown episode about cancer. So my husband...
Okay, you had some self-doubt that was coming up.
No, actually I did, because it's not like it was the era of streaming. I'm sure I only saw it once. And I did kind of feel like, am I imagining? I mean, what an odd specific memory, but am I imagining that? And my husband looked it up, and I would just want to say, for my own validation, it was called Why Charlie Brown Why?
Those are hard questions for Charlie Brown.
Why Charlie Brown Why? It was an ABC animated special in 1990.
Oh, my goodness.
It was indeed about, because I think I can maybe find it to watch, which I'm going to do at some point. It was about a new schoolmate of Linus and Charlie. She bumps into some things and gets bruises. She gets sick at school. She has to go to the hospital. They discover she has leukemia. Apparently, there is some subplot where Lucy's afraid it's contagious.
Oh,
I didn't remember that.
Oh, my goodness.
But that would like make sense, right? Coming out of like the AIDS.
It would, yeah.
So I just want you all to know that Why Charlie Brown Why indeed existed.
And it has haunted you ever since.
And it has haunted me. And I want to know, is anybody out there? Does anybody else remember that? And, you know, it's a great reminder of how hard life is.
It is.
And
that it even creeps its way into animated children's specials.
Yes, our children's programming, trying to address what's going on, how challenging life is. Again, this was the 90s, so nobody discussed it with me. There was no follow-up conversations. This is why we do the podcast. We're having our own follow-up conversations.
Yes.
And we just decided we're going to go for it. First episode, season 2.
We're diving in.
Talking about trauma.
We are.
We were just like, bam, you're ready for it. We're going there. And, you know, as you and I were sort of discussing, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to approach it? We don't want to undercut the severity of anybody's trauma.
Right.
And so I have been using this language that I thought I invented. Okay. So I'm like, well, we can talk about, like, you know, uppercase T trauma and lowercase T trauma, big T trauma, little T trauma. I have been saying that for years. I was like really proud of, like, that's a great way to sum it up. I literally discovered last week on TikTok that the concept on TikTok, that's where I go for all my scholarly pursuits. The concept of big T and little T trauma is from the very famous book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Correct. Unfortunately, it's not original to you.
It's not original to me, but 2 people can come up with the same idea.
Well, that's true.
Because I did not read that book. So maybe, I don't know, either I absorbed it through osmosis, but I did not, I guess, it's not original to me.
Yes.
But the big T trauma, little T trauma. Can you help flesh that out for us a little bit?
Sure. So yes. So in an effort, you know, as we're learning more and more about trauma, in an effort to find a way to distinguish or categorize different types of trauma, different severities of the wounding. We have in the research community, in the clinical community, this terminology of big T trauma, little t trauma. Now, is it perfect? No, absolutely not. Because one person's little t trauma can be another person's big T trauma.
Sure.
And vice versa. We're also not using this terminology as a hierarchy of pain. Trauma is trauma. And we are wanting to name that and validate that. Sometimes it can be helpful, though, again, as a way to kind of distinguish between types of events where maybe little t trauma we might name as something that maybe is a little bit easier to talk about, or it's something where I've been able to enter into some healing and maybe I'm even able to find some humor in it, whereas maybe a big T trauma would be something that would not be applicable.
Right. So that leads us into... We're about to do a trauma game. Okay? Everybody just be ready. Okay. We like to do fun stuff on this podcast. We like to laugh. Humor is important to both of us. And honestly, I think it's important to everybody.
It is. It is. Like we were saying, this is such a brutal world that we live in. And to have a breather every once in a while feels like a necessity.
Feels like a necessity. We're getting into it. We're playing Two Truths and a Lie Trauma Edition.
Okay. Little T
trauma. Coined by me. Copyright Andy Spray. I also, by the way, this is a total aside, I'm pretty sure I used the word hangry before it was widely used.
Okay.
I think I invented that one as well. Okay. But we're going to play Two Truths and a Lie Trauma Edition, Little T Trauma.
So this might be a way that we're giving ourselves and everyone a breather. It also, let's just name, might be our own trauma responses showing up, yours and mine. If that's the case, well, Say More community, you get to see that in real time. I'm going to guess we're not alone in it. So if that resonates with you, well, you've found your tribe.
Laughing at trauma is the only way I know forward. Personally, there are probably better ways that you'll tell us about later.
I will, yes.
Okay, so let me just lay down the parameters of the game. This was hard because we are good friends. We know each other's stories.
Yes.
We definitely know all of our capital T traumas.
We do.
So we're trying to come up with two truths and a lie. You know how that game works. But the idea is that it's a little T trauma that sort of has been haunting you.
Yes.
What's something that has stuck with you, something that has come back over and over again that you can sort of trace to a mildly funny traumatic moment in your life.
Yes.
And this was really hard because not only we've been friends for a long time, but also light trauma is like my day one interaction. Like if we go on like a first friend date, I want to know who in your family is an alcoholic and how that impacted you. Okay. So this was hard. I had to dig deep for some stories. All right. So I'm going to go first.
Okay. You're going to start.
And then you're going to go. Okay. In high school.
Okay.
You're already laughing.
I'm trying to be a therapist and have fun with this too. Okay.
In high school, I got in a fairly serious car accident.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't major, but the car was totaled. Airbags went off. I was driving.
Goodness.
My friend was in the passenger seat. And it was obviously terrifying, scary, all of those kinds of things. Tow trucks called, blah, blah, blah. I went to call 911.
Okay.
This is the first and only time I've called 911 for myself.
Okay.
And the line was busy. Okay. So I now regularly, like, talk about haunting, like regularly in my anxiety dreams, will be trying to call 911.
Oh my
and I can't, like, the phone won't work.
Okay.
I can't get the buttons to go.
Okay.
Like, I'm unable to call 911 because the very first time I needed to call 911.
It was busy.
The line was busy.
And I have to try to figure out if you're telling me the truth or if you're making that
this
up.
could be total bull, but you have to decide that for yourself. Okay. Speaking of reoccurring dreams that haunt me, a lot of my trauma comes in haunting dreams. Okay. I have very vivid dreams. Do you ever have the dream where your teeth fall out?
All the time.
That's a very common dream.
All the time.
I have twice in my life had that happen in real life.
A dream actually
real life
came true.
Once was in college. I was at a friend's parents' house, and literally a tooth just came out of my mouth.
Fell out of your mouth?
Fell out of my mouth. I have a lot of dental trauma, but you already know all my dental trauma. So this one was when I wasn't sure you know. And then more recently at a physical therapy appointment, I'm like doing my stretches and I just feel rattling around in my mouth and I spit it out. And my teeth are like the consistency of Play-Doh. They just crumble very easily. I grind my teeth. It's bad.
Oh my goodness.
It's cost me many thousands of dollars and many, many root canals. But twice in my adult life,
oh my goodness,
teeth have just fallen out of my mouth. I wasn't in pain. It just fell out.
This is going to be an impossible thing for me to figure out. Keep going.
Okay, last one. We're going to go to middle school, which is where trauma really gets to shine.
It sure does.
Okay. And when I was in 7th grade, we had a class called speech. It was a public speaking class. You know I love public speaking. I always have. And I won like outstanding speech student of the year. And I had to, get this, make a speech at the award ceremony. And we're in the middle school amphitheater. And I tripped.
Oh, no.
on my way up to the, I don't know if it was a podium or a music stand or whatever. And there was definitely some level of flashing that went on. And interestingly enough, that has not really changed my love of public speaking, because I still love public speaking. But it has made me like hyper vigilant about what clothes I wear. Okay. Make sure there's not going to be any wardrobe malfunctions. I'm always looking out for where the cables and cords might be. Oh my goodness. So that I don't trip in front of the entire 7th grade.
Everyone.
In front of everybody. Definitely show the boy I like my underwear. Total accident. So that one is really... There's a haunting there.
Okay, those are mine. That's going to be absolutely impossible
One of
for
those
me
is a
to
lie.
figure out. All right, well, so I'm going to go ahead and share mine.
Okay.
And then you and I together are going to take a guess.
Okay.
All right, so I have had a tremendous amount of car trouble in my life, as you already know.
Yes, I know that to be true.
My most humiliating experience with car trouble was when my car sputtered and eventually died and came to a complete stop right as I was pulling up to the collect your food window in the drive-thru of a Taco Bell.
That would be where it would happen. Okay. So it sputters and dies.
Humiliated.
In the pickup window at the Taco Bell.
Everyone is looking at you. You have to wait for the tow truck.
Oh, and there's like a line of people
behind you.
Everybody wants their chalupas. They're hangry. Copyright Andy Spray.
Okay, so that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, in my former life, I worked as a nanny, which you also know. And it was an extraordinary experience in every way. But there was one experience where I was on a private helicopter tour in Hawaii with a celebrity who shall remain unnamed.
Okay.
Just me, my nanny charge, this celebrity, and his wife. Very private helicopter tour. And
it's a very intimate nanny situation.
For the entirety of the helicopter ride, he unabashedly and very, very loudly released emissions, so to speak.
Okay.
But I was the one traumatized because I'm trapped in a helicopter over the volcanoes of Hawaii.
Trapped in a volcano or trapped in a helicopter above a volcano with a farting celebrity. Am I hearing you correctly?
Unabashed.
Okay, just
that's it.
No shame.
None.
Okay.
His celebrity status, I think, made him impervious to feel
what is wrong with people?
Shame. Well, it certainly has haunted me. I can assure you of that. Okay. So that's number two. Number three, also, I'm going back to some younger years for myself. In high school, the grunge mania had taken hold in my high school. And I decided to try out a new outfit, decided to try to step into the grunge look.
Okay.
I got a flannel shirt, got some Timberland boots, my denim. The only problem was I didn't have the internet back then, right, to help me figure out what the look was supposed to look like. And I decided to tuck in my flannel shirt.
Oh.
And I walked in to my 10th grade chemistry class feeling really proud of myself. I was like, boy, this is going to wow. I walked in and one of my classmates immediately, hey, Emily, dressing like a lumberjack.
Oh,
and
no.
humiliated.
Not enough 17 magazines in the world to help you.
That flannel shirt went way, way, way back in the closet, along with all my trauma.
All your shame got tucked back in there with the flannels.
Okay, so now we have to figure out which of those experiences didn't actually happen to either one of us. Can I try first for yours?
Sure, try first for mine.
I'm going to guess it was the teeth one. Because
that's disgusting.
Well, not based on what I know of your history, possible. I'm just not sure that it happened twice. Maybe it happened once, but twice, and one of them happening while you were in a physical therapy session. So that's my guess.
Okay, I'm going to guess. Okay, here's the thing about the celebrity. Emily is very demure. She does not talk about bathroom humor. You would not have made that one up. So that one's got to be true. Now, while I can see your car breaking down in a Taco Bell because you love Taco Bell, and your car has broken down many times,
yes.
I feel like where I really felt the trauma in your eyes was the flannel being tucked in. Okay. So I'm going to say your lie is the Taco Bell car trouble.
You got it right.
I got it right.
Because it wasn't a Taco Bell. It was a McDonald's drive-thru.
Were you getting a fish fillet?
I can't remember. I knew you were going to ask me that. I truly can't remember. But what I do remember is once my car got moved out of the drive-thru, I walked back to the window to get my food. It was awful.
I knew it felt like it could be true because it was mostly true.
It was an awful, awful day.
But I love that you were like, no, I'm going back in. I'm getting the fries. Deal with it, people.
I did.
They really had to come tow you out of the drive-thru line?
Yes, it was awful. It was humiliating.
That is pretty bad.
A humiliating day.
And what's your measure on what fast food restaurant would have the most angry people behind you? Like, would McDonald's have a nice, generous spirit about them to be like,
versus
let's help
Bell.
Versus Taco Bell? I feel like Taco Bell would be the most chill.
They're a little more chill. Yeah, I would agree.
Like Chick-fil-A, somebody's yelling at you. In the name of Jesus, somebody's yelling at you to get out of their way.
So true.
I'm going to tell you, you did not correctly guess mine.
So the others.
I did indeed have two teeth fall out at two separate times. You did? During physical therapy.
Okay, but the public speaking one, I feel like was true.
It was tricky because I did get Best Public Speaker Award. Okay. And I did at other times fall flat on my face and show my underwear in middle school, but not at the same time.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why.
I never did the falling on my face in front of the whole crowd. Now, I did run to try and catch my bus and fall flat on my face as every bus drove by and saw me. And I did rip my pants and everybody saw my red, white, and blue underwear and saluted me, but not while I was giving any particular. So it doesn't have any ongoing trauma to my public speaking life because it's not connected with public speaking.
My goodness.
It happened at just normal middle school junctures.
Boy, I've got tears in my eyes. Okay.
And did you not know that 911 story where the line was busy?
I didn't remember it.
Yeah.
I really didn't remember that one.
Isn't that wild?
Also horrific.
Well, with all of that, let's go ahead and get into our trauma question.
Okay.
So we've actually gotten more than one question about trauma, and I'm just going to read them. This one sort of was the one that's kind of summed up the most of what we're going to talk about today.
Great.
And it says, how would you define trauma? Because it feels like the word is being overused and everyone is a victim.
Wonderful. Okay, it's such a good question. And yes, we've heard a lot of different types of questions, but this one did sort of encapsulate a lot of what people are curious about or wanting to learn more about. And it's a good question because I can hear when someone would say, aren't we overusing the word? I could hear, I have concerns about us overusing the word because then the word trauma doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Or I have concerns about us overusing the word because then we're allowing people to wallow in their pain. Or don't we need to do something different with that? So I can understand the question. As a therapist, I usually ask a lot more questions than I give answers. So I'm going to do the same thing for all of us in this episode today. All right. When I hear a question like that, aren't we overusing the word trauma? What comes to mind for me is, okay, I wonder what is the function of asking a question like that? What would it provide for me to get a yes or no answer to that type of question? Sometimes when we find ourselves asking that type of question, it can possibly be an indicator of the way I feel about my own pain or my own trauma, and even more, the value that it has to someone else.
Okay.
So what we're going to do in today's episode is I'm going to give us some additional information just to allow us to maybe consider, to think about things in maybe a way that we haven't been given permission to think about before, through a different lens, a different perspective. And then I'm going to allow everyone listening to come up with their own answer to that question. So let's go ahead and get started with what even is trauma.
What is it?
What is trauma? All right. Trauma is like a wound that the brain has not been allowed to heal. All right. Now, because the brain has not been allowed to heal, it doesn't like that. And it means that it never got a message that the danger is over. So it's like a wound that the brain has not been allowed to heal. And when that wound doesn't get a chance to heal, my brain never gets the message that the danger is over.
Okay.
So where it leaves us is my brain wants to keep that memory submerged. And at the same time, it wants to put the puzzle pieces back together so it can make sense of what happened, so it can feel safe again. So it's a really difficult place to be, where my brain is wanting to keep it stuffed down, and at the same time, it's wanting to feel safe. It's wanting to put those puzzle pieces back together. Now, to add to that, like when we have a bodily injury, that part of my body is more sensitive to physical pain. Like if I break my arm and somebody bumps up against my broken arm, the pain is more immediate, it's more extreme, right? Than if somebody just bumped my elbow and my arm has not been injured.
Sure.
When a traumatic wounding occurs, the nervous system becomes more sensitive to getting quote unquote bumped.
Got it.
But because it's an internal wounding, the bump looks a little different. So my traumatic wounding getting bumped might look like me seeing something that I saw when the injury occurred, or me hearing or feeling something touching my body, even smell, right? That if any of that gets bumped, if I encounter that again, that also was related to when the
even
traumatic,
the sensory input that could be connected to the wound,
that would bump up against a very sensitive nervous system. Okay. It also could be, a bump could look like the belief that I believed about myself when the injury took place. The narrative, the story, the way I made sense of why the injury took place. If I encounter that same internal belief, it can bump up against a traumatic wounding. And when I'm saying bumped, when we're talking about trauma, we use the word trigger, right?
Okay.
So it could be an emotion that I felt at the time of the injury. It could be a sensation that I felt in my body that came along with the emotion. All of those things can get triggered or bumped with a very sensitive nervous system.
Okay.
And then all of that memory, those puzzle pieces, get activated again. The only problem is when they get activated, they don't just show up in a very calm, controlled manner. They show up overpowering. They show up uncontrolled. They show up in such a big, extreme way that sometimes I have to separate from my body or disconnect from my body because the pain is so great. They show up in a way where it's distorted. It's almost like before the traumatic injury, I was wearing a pair of normal glasses. And then after, I'm now wearing a pair of glasses where the lens has been shattered. So everything is distorted now at this point. So when that gets triggered and all of those puzzle pieces come to the surface again in such a chaotic way.
Okay.
Well, now I'm not able to live in the present anymore, right? I'm either going to go to the past or to the future. And it is an incredibly, incredibly distressing experience.
Let me repeat back what I'm hearing just to make sure.
Because it's a lot.
It's a lot. And I'm processing it right along with everybody listening. So trauma is a wound that has not been healed. And it gets sort of brought back up in a variety of ways through triggering. Triggering maybe the sensory input of what was going on at the time, maybe something about it that you remember, the emotions you said, right. Something about it brings it back up. And when it comes up, because it's unhealed, it's very chaotic and distorted, and you're not really able to see things clearly because of the distortion going on.
Precisely. You got it. So I'm going to give a really practical example. So several years ago, I was attacked and bitten by a dog, a German Shepherd. And all of these things took place for me when that injury occurred, okay? But the trauma is not the injury. The trauma is the wound, the internal wounding that has stayed with me. It would be sort of like we might say, the blow to the head is the injury, but the concussion is the trauma.
The trauma.
The wound is the trauma. So in that incident with the dog, my body froze. And so for years, I would see a German Shepherd and my body would do the exact same thing. The belief that I believed about myself when that happened, I can't protect myself. I should have done something different. And now I can't trust myself. That belief would show up for me again. You could have been walking alongside me and seen the same dog in the distance, but because of my wounding, I immediately saw that dog as unsafe.
Yeah.
You might have seen the dog literally with a smile on its face. And wanted as Emily, the dog is fine. I can't see it. My perception, my perspective is distorted. And at the same time, I'm in the past again. I'm re-experiencing all of that internal experiential memory.
So the injury is what happened. The wound, would you say, is what lingers? The wound is what
continues,
is the trauma.
And that is the trauma.
The wound is the trauma.
Yes.
The injury is what happened. The wound is the trauma.
Yes.
And that's what can get brought back up as clear as it was the first time it happened. You seeing a new dog that's not the same dog, a totally different dog.
Correct.
It still can bring up all the wounding.
Correct.
Of what happened. And you said it's how you felt, what you believed, the sensations in your body. Exactly. All of that can get brought up as if it's happening again.
As if it is happening in the exact moment. And this is what makes it so difficult sometimes when we are experiencing our own trauma and walking alongside someone else who with their own trauma, right? Is that because it is an internal wounding, we can't always see all of that. And so it's different than a broken arm where it's a very visible injury and there's a clear path to recovery. When it is a traumatic wounding, the effects can be much more complex, much more long-lasting. They affect our emotional, our psychological well-being. They can also affect our physical well-being.
Okay.
And so it can be an incredibly, incredibly distressing experience.
So I guess you kind of answered it, but what causes
it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to use a two-part definition for this. The first part of the definition of when can a traumatic wounding occur? It can occur anytime there has been too much at once, too much for too long, or too little of something for too long. So too much at once, too much for too long, or too little of something for too long. And that's a more expansive definition than maybe some of you listening have heard before.
Right.
So let me flesh that out a little bit. A too much at once could be something like a natural disaster or some sort of a horrifically tragic event where there's too much fear that happens at once in my body, too much shame that takes place at once.
That might be more of what traditionally you would think of as a traumatic event. You survived a plane crash. That would be a traumatic
People
event.
might put that in the quote unquote big T trauma category. The too much for too long and the too little for too long could be something along the lines of too much coercion for too long, too much unpredictability for too long, too little nurturing for too long, too little truth for too long, right? So when we start to open up the definition a little bit more, now everyone listening is starting to scan through your own stories,
right?
And say, hang on a minute. I think I have some things that might fit into that too much at once, too much for too long, and too little for too long.
Truly. I know somebody who is going through therapy and she really balked at the concept that she was experiencing trauma or, it was like PTSD, that's for soldiers.
Right.
I didn't go to war.
Right. And for a long time, that was all the research that we had around trauma. As we have learned more, we are changing some of those parameters.
So too much at once, too much for too long, or too little
for too long. Okay, so that's the first part of the definition.
Okay.
The second part is a traumatic wounding can occur when there's been too much at once, too much for too long, or too little for too long without sufficient attunement. Now, attunement is one of those big
that's a therapy word.
Therapy words that we talked about a little bit in the first season. So just as a refresher, attunement is when somebody is able to notice, to see, to hear what has happened for me long enough for me to get a felt experience that I'm not alone in it. So let's go back to that dog bite for myself, right? Sufficient attunement in that moment would have looked like somebody being able to sit with me with enough time for me to be able to name, these were the emotions that I felt.
Yeah.
This is what I saw. This is what I was believing about myself. This is what happened in my body. This is, and I might need to name it over and over and over again, right? But sufficient attunement would provide nurturing to all of those aspects. So it's a two-part definition. The first, when there's too much at once, too much for too long, or too little for too long, without sufficient attunement.
Okay, that's what creates.
That's when the traumatic wounding can occur.
It's so interesting, like. What I believed about myself is not one that I would know to support somebody through. Like, I could think, wow, that must have been really scary for you.
Sure.
That would have been really, I could see how your body would be, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I would ever know to go to what you believed about yourself and therefore what you may continue to believe about yourself when this comes up.
Absolutely. And that's one of those parts of the wounding that can really harken back to very, very, very early traumatic wounding experiences, because sometimes it can tap into what we would call like a core belief, where it's not, it didn't just start with this particular injury. It started with former injuries, and often with what I'm believing about myself, there's also a tremendous amount of emotion that comes along with that belief, right?
Right.
So yes. So for that reason, I mean, it makes sense why people want to avoid triggers. Everything that we're naming right now is a incredibly overwhelming and painful and distressing experience.
No, thank you.
Why wouldn't I want to avoid my triggers?
But it's so funny to me that, everybody rolls their eyes at like, oh, trigger warning. And it's like, we love to criticize people for being triggered while simultaneously not helping anybody address or heal from a wound.
It's a impossible place to be if you are someone who's trying to move into healing with your wounding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So either I'm being criticized that it came up or nobody's addressing it at all.
Right.
So that attunement you're talking about, does that happen primarily through a parent-child relationship?
It can, depending on the severity of the wounding.
Okay.
It might be necessary to bring professional support in, right? Because to walk with someone in that requires deep humility and a tremendous amount of patience. And again, depending on what the actual injury was, it might be necessary to bring in professional support. That being said, a parent or a friend also plays a really important role in the attunement, because to the degree that I can offer, I can walk alongside someone. I can invite them to an exercise class or have them over for a meal. And it doesn't mean that all of that experiential memory necessarily will come out, but I'm providing that additional relationship in a consistent way for that person to kind of experience safety over and over again.
Just as you're talking, you're like, you've really expanded the definition to a degree that, I bet everybody who's listening can say, oh, me too, I guess.
I mean, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm going to try to stay out of answering that question.
Yeah.
But the more information that we can learn, often it does open up some compassionate curiosity for ourselves to be able to say, I don't know that I've ever looked at it that way.
And you can see how, especially if these are woundings that happened in early childhood,
Correct.
how that would just grow with you.
Absolutely.
Over time.
Absolutely.
So how do we
heal that?
From that? Right? I mean, I don't want to just leave us on the...
Yes.
Okay, well, it turns out we're all traumatized. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yes. All right. So healing occurs or takes place, the recovery takes place when you are able to facilitate a reversal of the experience of the trauma in whatever caregiving relationship is present. And I'm going to draw from a woman named Diane Langberg. She is a profoundly influential trauma therapist, a very seasoned clinician. I'm going to adopt some of what she uses to kind of help us name that a little bit easier.
Okay.
She says that this reversal of the experience must include 3 elements. It must include talking, it must include tears, and it must include time.
Okay.
And you have to have all 3 as part of that recovery process. Talking, tears, and time. And it must be in the context of a caregiving relationship. The relational piece has to be there. Okay. Here's why she names those things, which, by the way, I've linked one of her books in the show notes, along with a couple of my other favorites. If anybody is interested
We're going to need some additional resources, I feel like.
More. Okay. It requires talking because trauma often silences. Sometimes it happens overtly. The perpetrator is silencing the person. Sometimes it happens covertly or indirectly, but trauma silences. Sometimes the silencing happens because I'm feeling so much shame that, and my own belief is telling me, if I tell anybody this, then I'm just going to receive even more shame. So trauma silences. Sometimes the silencing happens just because of sort of societal institutions. And tragically, the church has participated in that silencing far too often. That's one of the reasons that I even went into the profession that I went into, because I wanted to be part of the change in that. For a person to be able to name what has happened for them. And it's not just recounting the details of what happened, right? It's all of those other elements that we named, because it's an internal wounding. Someone has to have an opportunity to be able to name those so that they can be honored, so they can be attuned to, so they can be nurtured, so they can be heard. So talking has to be a part of the process. It requires tears. There is immense grief that comes along with healing a traumatic wounding. And as we've been saying, often our body, because of our body's response to the injury, doesn't feel safe to let those tears happen.
Right.
So it has to be in the context of the safe relationship for those tears to be able to move through, for that grief to be able to move through. Sometimes the tears are an indicator of grief. Sometimes they're an indicator of overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right. And that the tears need to move through. But because of that reason, it has to include talking, and it has to include tears.
Tears. Okay.
And then the third one is time. Because that's the way we heal. We are not efficient. We are humans that are fearlessly and wondrously and beautifully made. And so there is a stunning complexity to us and our stories. And that just requires time for that to be able to be healed and seen and honored.
And I think, I'm just guessing that, speaking from my own experience, the shame people feel that something has gone on for so long.
Absolutely.
And I was literally just had something brush up against some wounding in my life over the weekend. And I was thinking about it as I was walking this morning, and I'm like, but that happened so long ago. And it's like, there was a part of me that is almost like, projecting into what people might think of, like, still that, right?
Yes.
And it's like, no, the time that it might need to move all the way through to a place of healing.
Yes.
And maybe there's even, seasons where you get into it and then it heals deeper in another season.
In a completely different way, right? Because our capacity for those things, those puzzle pieces, to be able to come to the surface is going to change as I am in that safe caregiving relationship for a longer period of time.
And you might reach a new place of something that you could get to and heal a little better, a little deeper.
Well said, well said. Which, okay, so you bring up a really good point then. Well, then how can I tell if
how do
my
I even
trauma
know if it's healed?
Is healed or if it's healing?
Because sometimes, it's like, I thought I dealt with that
I dealt with that.
Yeah.
And here it is where my body is experiencing something in a way that's really catching me off guard.
Yeah.
So because of the nature of how trauma is stored in our body, that's the way it comes back. It doesn't come back as a thought. It comes back as a whole body felt sense experience. And you and I were even trading some stories about that recently.
Yeah, this is a kind of to lighten us up for a little bit.
We're going to come up for a little bit of a breather for a second.
That's the whole thing. The body remembers and the body whatever. And I, a couple years ago, was getting a therapeutic massage, which is not a relaxing massage. They're like digging in. I have some back pain, hence the physical therapy where my teeth are falling out. It's all connected. And they're like digging in to specific muscles. And the woman she had her thumb like in this, it was, again, not relaxing. This was not a spa day. And she had like dug her thumb into this one random spot on my back. And audibly I went, guinea pigs. Because it was like a demon shot out of me. It was very jarring for them in the room too. Because first of all, I think it's a requirement that if you have any small rodent pet, it's going to die in a traumatic way. If you've ever had a hamster, a guinea pig, a gerbil, you can be a part of the trauma club. My daughter had guinea pigs. She still does, but we had one that died very tragically.
It was.
In her arms.
It was too much at once.
It was too much at once.
Yes.
And it was shocking how much it impacted me as her mom, worried about her. She's a very quiet kid, so I was worried she was internalizing a lot. And then it was all the things that you said about like, I didn't do enough. I didn't protect her. I didn't protect the guinea pig. R.I.P. Licorice. She's dancing with Jesus now.
We're honoring Licorice.
But truly, the amount that stored up inside of me and my body.
Yes.
And when massage therapist, I was not thinking, this had been probably a year or more later.
Yes.
Right? This was not like recently.
Yes.
It had died. But what that wound stored in my
Yes.
body, and apparently right behind my shoulder blade.
It got
because
released.
I said it out loud.
You needed to talk it.
I needed to, right. There were tears too.
Yes, and there were, that's interesting.
Yes.
And there
Well,
were
also
tears that
those
came along with it too.
Therapeutic massages hurt.
Well,
But it was literally like, whoa, like
Yes.
a ghost escaped out of my body,
Yes.
and it said, guinea pigs. It was so wild. And all I could think of it, I was like, oh my gosh, my body was really holding on to that.
absolutely. That's the way that it shows up. And, I was sharing one that for years after I was bitten by that dog, the traumatic wounding would come back as a whole body experience. And I was out on a hike once on a like a wooded path, and I turned the bend, and there were 2 German shepherds that came bounding towards me off leash. And I went into a little bit of freeze, but also a little bit of fight.
Yeah.
And I started yelling at the owner, sir, your dogs are supposed to, I just lost it on this guy. And he quite honestly was very patronizing and looked at me and very sarcastically said, okay. But my brother was on the phone with me when it happened and overheard the whole thing. And he commented, he said, wow, sounds like 2 people lost control of their BITCHs today. Because I did, it came, you know me.
Yeah.
I'm not an aggressive person like that.
You're very.
And I showed up in a very big way with this man because all of that stored experience in my body just came out like you were saying. And then, of course, my brother, he's very compassionate and he was very kind to attune to me for the rest of the phone call, but it kind of helped that he made me laugh a little bit as well. But yes, but that is how it comes back. So when that does happen for us, it can be very distressing and it can really catch us off guard. It also is a way that we are learning. Triggers are our teachers. So when
it's telling me something.
When that happens, it's telling me, hey, this is an opportunity for more healing to occur. And it doesn't always show up like a panic attack, or it doesn't always show up like big anger. A trauma response can show up as compulsive behavior. A trauma response can show up as hyper-independence or hyper-dependence. A trauma response can show up as high rigidity and wanting to control my environment or control other people around me. So when we start to open up the definition and open up what it looks like, well, we're probably encountering triggers all the time.
Well, what I'm hearing is we're encountering triggered people all the time.
Well, again, I'm going to let people come up with their own answers, but as we keep opening this up, it's in my personal clinical take, it's going to be harder and harder to say, yeah, only certain people have experienced this.
Well, it just seems like people who have these, a coworker, a friend, a family member, have these reactions out of nowhere.
Yes.
And, I'm wondering now, it's like, what got bumped up?
Yes.
For you?
Right.
What wound?
Right.
Just accidentally got bumped into, and now you're yelling at the dogs on the trail, or whatever it may be. I'm hearing that it's, you're not going to tell us, but sounds like it's pretty universal.
Yeah, that guy didn't know my story.
Yeah.
Right? So part of what we're doing in this podcast overall, but especially in this episode today, is allowing us to have a little more compassion for ourselves so that we can offer compassion in turn to other people. Because we are naming, this is a brutally hard world to live in.
Yeah.
And you live life long enough, there is such a tremendous amount of pain. And these ways that we try to maneuver or deal with our pain can show up in such varied ways that being able to have some more compassion for ourselves so that in turn we can offer compassion to other people is a tremendous practice.
And just, I would think as we get deeper into our own healing, our ability to have that attunement with friends and loved ones would increase.
Yes, absolutely.
Your ability to sit with me is a direct result of the work you've done for your own healing of your own trauma.
Yes. Yes. And what a privilege it is. And so that's where we're going to kind of land for today, because I want to leave us on a note of hope.
Okay.
You know, as I have day in and day out had the privilege to bear witness to so many courageous people stepping into their own traumatic wounding and stepping into their own healing. As I have walked with that, the question inevitably shows up, both for me and maybe for all of us listening. Why does this happen? Like, how can this keep happening? I don't have an emotionally satisfying answer for that. I often end my clinical days asking that same question. Regardless of what we believe, and we have people as part of the Say More listening audience who are Christians, who believe in God, who have other beliefs, whatever your belief system is,
right.
You are welcome here, and we are so thrilled to have you as part of the community. But regardless of what our belief system is, I think this is a question that all of us are often left with.
Right.
And I can only speak for myself as someone who is a Jesus follower, that one thing I do know, God never wastes a wound. Never. And so as a Jesus follower, I neither diminish the pain of abuse and suffering, nor do I despair. And here's why. None of us have ever gone somewhere that Jesus has not already been. None of us can find a darkness where he has not visited. And none of us will go into a darkness where we will not find the treasure of him. And that has been true for myself in my own personal healing with my own trauma. I have witnessed it with other people as they have, when they have stepped over and over and over and over again into attunement with Jesus, who offers unfathomable grace and love and acceptance in the darkness.
Yeah.
He wants us to know that what has been done to us will not triumph, because he has triumphed over the darkness. So that I can say that I know for certain.
It's very beautifully said. Boy, we've run the gamut this episode. I've been in tears. Yeah. I've been laughing. I think that's the note we want to end it on. Yeah. That we are glad you're here. However you identify in a faith way, we're glad you're here. Whatever degree of healing you're on with your own traumatic wounding, we are glad you're here. We're glad you can laugh with us and cry with us. And we're going to just continue to get into these messy bits of human life.
Of human life and the realness of it.
And we can be here together and say, we can acknowledge how hard it is, but we also don't have to despair.
Yeah.
So that's a really beautiful thing. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here for the beginning of season 2. We hope you stay along for the journey. We want to hear from you. If there's a topic you want us to say more about, let us know. In the show notes, you're going to see a link to social media. We're trying to make it easier for you to communicate with us. So make sure you're checking that out. There's also going to be some additional resources and some books that Emily put in there. And we are really looking forward to digging in the dirt with you for the next episode.